The Nintendo Switch is in no short supply of games these days, which basically means that there really should be something for everyone to play. For the mainstream player, you have your Marios, your Minecraft. We recently got MLB The Show, which was a PlayStation exclusive for a long time. And for those of us that want something a bit different, we have things like Doki Doki Literature Club, Deadly Premonition, Danganronpa, Deltarune, and even Donut County. And the best part about playing video games in the modern age is that typically, for the most part, even if they're not going to sell gangbusters, they still get released in the East and the West. There are a huge amount of games that never released in the West on the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64, the GameCube, and even the Wii. But with the Switch, it feels like we, for the most part, get almost everything. Games like the Famicom Detective Club remakes, the Live Alive remake, and even littler projects like Box Boy and Part-Time UFO are evidence. It's proof that the West doesn't really always seem to miss out like it used to. But what if that wasn't actually the case? What if I told you there were tons of weird and wacky Japanese exclusive games for the Switch that have never released in the West? Because we found some. And boy, we have some treats. I'm Zion from Nintendo Life, and today we're here to share with you 7 Nintendo Switch games that have never released in the West. They are still stuck in Japan. Now, if you know the language or you're just brave enough to try venturing forth into them, you can import these games or download them digitally on the Japanese eShop and give them a shot. And some games are easier to play than others, as the language barrier isn't so bad to jump into depending on the game, but we'll talk about that on a case-by-case basis per game. So without further ado, let's see what we've been missing out on. There's something oddly charming about animals living in a post-apocalyptic world devoid of humans. We saw this happen on PlayStation with Tokyo Jungle. Xbox had Connectimals. And now Nintendo has Metal Dogs, a game where good pups have learned to use our technology and our weapons to hunt and survive. Taking place in the Metal Max universe, not to be confused with Mad Max, Metal Dogs is an isometric shooter where you get to play as pups equipped with weapons like Gatling guns and rocket launchers. Plus, there's a ton of adorable outfits you can unlock for your team. Want to dress up your doggo as a shark, a hippo, or put him in a cardboard car? Go ahead. You can even unlock an orange defense cone outfit equipped with special defense orange cone missiles. Much wow. Very impress. Now, sadly, the Metal series of games haven't really taken off here in the West, so we may never see this little oddity swim overseas. However, the main game looks like it could be pretty enjoyable even if you can't understand the plot. But maybe if we're lucky, some publisher will find it in their heart to adopt these puppers and give them a good home here in the West. What do you think you get when you mix a tower defense game with Pokemon and Cooking Mama? Hands down, Tabe-O-Ja may be one of the strangest games on the Switch, and I am so intrigued. It's been really hard to understand exactly what this game is all about, as there isn't really a lot of gameplay online. Even trailers are locked away to Japan, at least I'm assuming that's where. But from what I've gathered, you're playing as a chef who's trying to rise up the ranks and win a world cooking competition. But you can't do it alone, since you're just a kid, of course. You'll need the help of Tabegame, which are basically gods, I think, that are based on foods. There's a burger cat that wields a sword, a pizza gecko that has a cheese tongue, and a dog made of curry that's also a sailor. And this all sounds pretty great, right? But one of the best parts of the game that I haven't even gotten to talk about yet is the fact that the game comes with, I guess what you'd call a grip that encases your right Joy-Con and makes it look like some weird Final Fantasy weapon. The thing that really pulls this all together for me, though, is the Pepper Ripper hot sauce bottle that you put inside of the Joy-Con case. Now, it's not real hot sauce, I'm pretty sure, but I'm curious. I thought this game was made for kids. So do kids like hot sauce? And do kids want hot sauce that was made with peppers from hell? On top of all of this, there are then little plastic collectible book thingies that you can buy to add more Tabegame to your recipe collection. Some of these come with the base game, and the rest are then purchased through booster packs, sort of like Pokemon cards. Now, I'm not sure if you can only unlock more Tabegame by using these card book things, or if you can unlock them in game as well. But if you're curious to learn more about this game, about maybe how it actually plays, if you can actually understand it without knowing the language, and if it's really actually fun, well, stay tuned for later because I may have purchased a copy and I'm waiting for it to arrive. And maybe I'll do a full video if it proves to be tasty enough and if you want one. So let me know in the comments below if you want to learn more about Tabe-O-Ja. While the Yokai Watch series took Japan by storm, for as hard as Nintendo and Level 5 tried to make it a financial success, the games, anime, and manga didn't really take off the same way here in the West. However, there's still a passionate fan base that are clamoring for more yokai games, and there are plenty of new games on Switch hiding in Japan. Take Yokai Watch 4, for example, the most recent mainline game in the saga, released both on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 all the way back in 2019. And while it was reported at Anime Expo that same year that Yokai Watch 4 was in development for a Western release, we've yet to see it actually happen. That same year, in Japan, a remaster of the original 3DS Yokai Watch came to the Switch as well. Then a spin-off series called Y School Heroes also released on Nintendo Switch in 2020. And you guessed it, both of those are still locked away in Japan too. So what gives? Why hasn't the series been given any love in the West in years? Well, there are a number of things we could blame. Unfortunately, in 2020, the series creators and developers, Level 5, closed up their North American office, which didn't bode well for any future translation efforts. Plus, Yokai Watch 4 apparently was the worst-selling title in the series, even though it received high praise from Japanese reviewers. Now, we can't really fault Nintendo either for not wanting to help potentially localize Yokai Watch 4, as they put a lot of effort into the original game's marketing, and it just didn't seem to resonate with the general public the same way Pokemon did. And at this point, it feels like we may never see an official English translation. I hope sometime down the road, though, Nintendo or Level 5 prove this video wrong and make it happen. I really do. The visual novel adventure genre doesn't see the same kind of success here in the West like it does in Japan either. It feels fair to say that we've been lucky to receive official English translations of Famicom Detective Club, The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and The House and Fata Morgana. But there's still one particular game that often gets forgotten, as it hasn't really been around long enough to garner enough attention, in my opinion, and that's Buddy Mission Bond. This is a joint effort between Koei Tecmo and Nintendo themselves once again. Buddy Mission Bond puts you in the shoes of Luke Williams, a strapping young police officer who's just trying to achieve his dreams of being a hero. On paper, this may sound a little naive and childish, but the story takes some interesting turns in the early stages that help you understand where Luke's dreams were born. Thankfully, with this game, there is a demo available on the Japanese eShop, which helped me learn a lot more about this game, and you can go download it right now if you want to check it out. If you've played through a visual novel or an adventure game like Phoenix Wright, you'll know what to expect here for the most part. There are lots of dialogue boxes to press the A button through, and most dialogue is actually fully voiced in Japanese, so it helps keep you a bit more engaged, even if you can't understand what they're actually saying. Where things really get different with this game, though, is with the action segments. Each mission will end with a bang, allowing you to explore a full area in 3D. The gameplay here is pretty simplistic, straight up, consisting mostly of more quick-time events, but it adds a bit more spice to that standard visual novel adventure style, and I wish more games in the genre tried this out. It can be really rewarding to see these characters in 3D, and it can be another thing that just helps propel you to the end of each mission. Now, since the game doesn't offer any English dialogue options, I managed to fumble my way through the demo with the help of Google Translate on my phone. And while there was some charm to it and I was able to gather quite a bit of what was actually going on with the story, it definitely wasn't a perfect translation and my arm got pretty sore holding my phone up to the screen while I played. Definitely not ideal, but in small bursts, it's okay. The character designs were also done by the creator of One Punch Man, and each mission even features a cool manga-style cover to help sell the idea that you're actually reading a book. Now, there's even more about this game that I didn't get to experience in the demo, but based on the feature that Joshua Goldie from Source Gaming wrote for us earlier this year, there's an entire buddy system to the game too, where you're able to take on missions with other characters that you recruit throughout the story, hence where the word buddy fits into the title. At the end of the day, I could see this one being a risk Nintendo maybe just didn't want to take, as there would be a lot of dialogue to translate to make this game playable in the West. but maybe someday Koei Tecmo will muster up the strength to translate it themselves, or Nintendo will see a gap in the schedule and they'll go, hey, remember a Buddy Mission Bond? And bam, it'll just be available on the Nintendo Switch in the West. But regardless, go give that Japanese demo a shot if you like what you see. Remember Level 5 from earlier? You know, the creators of the Yokai Watch series and Professor Layton? Well, they haven't released a game on the Switch in the West since 2018 with Snack World. However, in Japan, they are thriving. And in 2021, they released a brand new IP called Megaton Musashi, and it even got an anime. From what we've gathered, the story follows a group of kids who are trying to save what's left of the world by fighting back against an alien attack with their own mechanized robots. Would you look at that? While the Google Translate app didn't play as nicely with the Japanese demo for this game, we actually have a full review up on NintendoLife.com for the game courtesy of James Milkey, and I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. Now, Megaton Musashi is a mix of two different gameplay styles. There's a host of visual novel adventure game goodness here. Think 13 Sentinels. It gives you a chance to explore the hand-drawn overworld, to progress the story, and just to chat it up with the townsfolk. Now, there is a lot of dialogue here, and if you aren't familiar with the language, you're going to have a hard time getting a grasp on the lore. However, most of the lengthy bouts of dialogue are skippable and can help propel you towards the second gameplay element, which is the big robot battles. Combat is fairly straightforward, letting you smack up some alien baddies with a simple press of a button. You can fire a gun too and can unleash special moves that recharge over time. For the most part, combat is fairly simple, but this just may be in line with Level 5's need to appeal to a broader audience. The combat does get a bit more interesting by allowing you to swap between different weapon sets on the fly, but beyond that, it doesn't really hold much substance. The most engaging aspect of the game for some, though, is the fact that you can customize your robot. Over the course of the campaign, you'll unlock a slew of better parts with unique attributes and color schemes to allow you to make the mech of your dreams. As we stated before, Level 5 also produced an anime to accompany the release in Japan, and while Season 2 is already in development, there's currently no official English sub or dub available. And if it was available, we'd recommend that you go watch the anime and then play the game simultaneously so you could understand the story. But for now, we're sort of left without options. From what I gathered from playing the demo, there's a lot of love that went into Megaton Musashi. The characters and world are incredibly detailed, and I especially love the nod to Sega with the Mega Arcade that your secret robot base is sneakily tucked away in. Every line of dialogue I came across was fully voiced, and there's plenty of nods to classic giant robot shows from the 80s. And while the combat isn't the most fun, the magic seems to lie in the customization. And if you've played the likes of Daemon X Machina and you need more big hero robots in your life, hopefully you get the chance to check this out someday. And let us know if you do. Of the mainline Dragon Quest games, every single one of them have been officially translated and released in the West, except for one. Much like Final Fantasy XI, Dragon Quest X marked a departure for the mainline games, going in the massively multiplayer online RPG direction that many series were trying out during the time. If you can believe it, Dragon Quest X released all the way back in 2012, initially on the Wii, just a few months before the launch of the Wii U. The game was ported the year after to the Wii U, PC, and mobile, and even though Japan was treated to a Switch version back in 2017, we're still waiting for some official method to experience everything this game has to offer. Our friend Brendan Hess put together an incredible video on the game over on his channel The Crawl of what sort of experience you can expect if you don't know Japanese and you try to play the game today. I learned a lot watching it and highly recommend you go give it a look if you're curious to play it yourself. And if you're a fan of Dragon Quest, there's almost no reason not to, as you can actually download the game on the Japanese Switch eShop and can play through the entire base game up to level 80 for nothing at all. It's entirely free. And let's say you're not the MMORPG kind of person, there is an entirely offline version of the game in development called Dragon Quest X Offline that looks to follow the traditional series formula of being a turn-based RPG. However, there's still no word on if this will actually come to the West or not. Thankfully, Square Enix and Nintendo have a fairly close relationship, especially when it comes to the Dragon Quest series. So I'd honestly be pretty surprised if Nintendo doesn't release this here, but I suppose we can only hope. Even though I personally have a pretty big soft spot for a lot of different anime series, I've never really understood Shin-chan. I'm pretty sure I watched a few episodes on Adult Swim back in 2010, and from what I remember, he was just this spunky little brat who loved to show his butt off to everyone. But then I caught word of this new Shin-chan game that released back in July of 2021 in Japan on Switch, and my opinion sort of changed. And I'm not talking about the Endless Runner Shin-chan game that came out on the Switch eShop in the West here either. This looks like something incredibly special. Crayon Shinchan Orato Hakase no Natsuyasumi, which translates roughly to Crayon Shinchan, Me and the Professor's Summer Holiday, the Endless 7-Day Trip, lets you roam around the Japanese countryside as Shin-chan. You get to just experience Japan as a kid. Your goal reminds me a lot of something you'd find in an indie game these days. You're given a camera by your uncle who tasks you with taking pictures of everything neat you discover during your summer. Catch a cool bug? Take a picture of it. See a dinosaur walking down the street? Take a picture of it. These pictures can then be used to build up a photo journal as your days go on. Now, unfortunately, I've yet to play the game myself, but from what I can tell, there's such a simplistic charm to the whole thing. There are plenty of similarities you could draw between Animal Crossing, with almost the carefree direction, and all of the bug and fish collecting. And it feels like there's some Story of Seasons inspirations with the characters you'll meet and the tiny garden you can farm with. Now, what makes this game extra special is that a number of different developers came together to work on this game, including the team at Millennium Kitchen. They're best known in Japan for creating the My Summer Vacation games on the PlayStation, which do a great job of capturing that magic and wonder of what it's like just being a kid and exploring your surroundings, and finding ways to have fun without tech and gadgets and the internet. These are also the same developers who created Attack of the Friday Monsters on 3DS, which I purchased immediately after I found out. Now, there is some good news on the translation front, as back when the game was first announced during a Japanese Nintendo Direct in early 2021, the game's director Kaze Ayabe stated, "I will do my best to release a European version," which in turn would likely mean the US would receive a version as well. Now, from what I've seen of the game, this could still be a lot of fun even with the language barrier. But the dialogue does seem integral to learn more about Shin-chan and the friends he makes during the summer. I've never been to Japan, but the buzzing cicadas, the beautiful sunsets, open fields, and kids trading collectible cards on the streets, that's what I think of. And maybe that's kind of weird, but I find it so charming and full of wonder. If the manga Yotsuba were ever turned into a video game, this is exactly how I'd want it to be, but in a larger city setting, I suppose. The combination of hand-drawn backgrounds with cel-shaded 3D models suit the world perfectly. The silly character interactions that you can have in the game that happen when doing morning stretches or sharing a meal with your family. Or even the fact that you can take nighttime baths with your dad. In any other video game, that would be completely weird and ridiculous, but in this game, it seems strangely wholesome and genuine. Mother 3 will always be at the top of my list when it comes to games that I want to see get a Western release. But there's so much to appreciate in this new Crayon Shinchan game that it's quickly become a game I can't stop thinking about. If I didn't already buy that food burger game from earlier, maybe I would have imported a copy of this game as well. And maybe someday I still will. But I will say, if the Doraemon Story of Seasons game could get greenlit for the West, why can't Shin-chan? Why can't he? And there you have it, 7. I give you 7 Nintendo Switch games that have still never released in the West. They are stuck in Japan at the time of recording this video. I will say though, I really hope this video becomes incredibly dated sooner than later. Like if a year passes and all of these games are out, I can't be mad. I will not be mad about that. But also, I will hold you accountable. I will hope that you come back and you comment on this video. Be sure to let us know in the comments down below if you learned something about any of these games, if you've never heard of them before, and let us know which one you'd be most eager to play, if any of them. Maybe if we're lucky, some Western publisher will take a look at this video and they'll see the comments and they'll go, you know what? I think Dragon Lord number 257 is absolutely right. We should bring over Shin-chan, Crayon Shinchan. We absolutely should. We should do it right now, today. Let's do it. Now, I should make it very clear, 7 I understand is a very small number. There are plenty of other games that are still stuck in Japan that may never come to the West. So please let us know in the comments below if there's something else you think we should have put on this list. If there's something that you found really enjoyable that you didn't necessarily need to know the language to play, let us know. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, then why don't you go ahead and find a way to unlock that subscribe button, find a way to get access to it. So that way it doesn't have to be region locked forever, right? Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Zion from Nintendo Life. Stay safe out there, and we will see you all next time.